Hello, it's ShadeX, and I just saw Close Enough. Season 1 of the show was released on HBO Max on July 9th, 2020. Anyway, in this video, I'll share my thoughts on the show. The show has been in development hell for so long. It took 3 years for this show to come out. The show seemed to be completed all the way back in 2017. However, it turns out that the trailer was fake footage. Sure, a few of the clips ended up in actual episodes, but according to J.G. Quintel, the trailer was just a pitch to the network. So, Close Enough's release took a long while because the show wasn't properly finished yet. JG also mentioned that the show took longer to come out because of the Warner and AT&T merger. Anyway, I already talked about Close Enough's history in my previous video on the same topic. In it, I explained why the show initially got shelved after the Louis C.K. controversy that killed the TBS animation block. Go watch that video if you haven't already. Close Enough is a show about a married couple named Josh and Emily, who are the parents of a little girl named Candace. Living along with them is a divorced couple named Alex and Bridget. The show comes from J.G. Quintel, who also created the Cartoon Network hit Regular Show. However, unlike Regular Show, Close Enough is made for an adult audience. According to his 2020 Comic-Con interview, the show is based on J.G. Quintel's experiences as an adult. The apartment in the show is based on an old apartment J.G. used to live in, and the story about being married and having a kid is based on his current life. The title of the show initially was going to be called Splitting Rent, but he thought that it was too obvious, which is why he went with the title Close Enough. If you miss Regular Show, then you will love Close Enough. Rather than focus on two slacker animals and the other odd characters that work at the park, this show opts to focus on human characters instead. Still, despite it having human characters as the main leads, it doesn't shy away from absurdist humor. The show is definitely a J.G. Quintel show. Each episode has a regular premise that leads to crazy stuff happening. Most of the crazy plots in this show wouldn't feel out of place in a Regular Show episode. In the first episode segment, Josh and Emily need to get a quilt made for their daughter Candace that they can bring to school. Initially, they plan on buying the materials so they can make one for Candace. However, Josh gets distracted and ends up buying churros, clothing, and a pet bird version of himself. With no hope, they end up running into some British street kids who have quilt making skills. They promise to act as parents for the kids, and in return they will get the quilt. Soon it is revealed that they aren't even kids and are old street urchins. What follows is a chase scene. The urchins nearly trap Josh and Emily until Bird Josh flies and distracts them. This results in a tragic scene where Bird Josh dies after being killed by one of the street urchins' birds. Anyway, long story short, Josh and Emily escape and then realize that Candace made a quilt of her own of the two of them naked. This is a great first episode of Close Enough, and while I see some similarities to Regular Show, it also stands out as its own show. At short glance, this does seem similar to a Regular Show episode. Replace Josh and Emily with Mordecai and Rigby, and replace making a quilt for their daughter's school with a commemorative quilt for the park or something like that. Well, I feel like this plot line would not work as well in Regular Show as it does in Close Enough, as the plot is written to fit the characters. There's just something unique about this show. This show isn't about animal slackers in their 20s working at a park where zany things tend to happen. Instead, this show is about a couple in their 30s trying to come to terms that they are getting older and be the best parents they can be. Don't get me wrong, J.G. Quintel does have a formula for writing episodes of Regular Show, and it is very much so present in Close Enough. Zany things still do happen. There is a difference though, that being that J.G. has less limitations as the show is targeted towards an adult audience. This means he doesn't have to shy away from swearing, making sex jokes, and showing gratuitous violence. Speaking of violence, this show is brutal, specifically in the episode Logan's Run. The episode is about a club full of young people who murder old people under the guise that they are a VIP. That episode is really bloody, and it also has some funny jokes in it too that would not be out of place in Regular Show. For example, there's a baby YouTube influencer. I found that reveal hilarious. It's clear Regular Show had some limitations. For example, guns could be used, but only when animatronics were being shot. Actually, the thing is that Regular Show didn't shy away from violence either. At the beginning of the Regular Show movie, Rigby gets killed by Mordecai. To be fair, there was no blood shown, but a character still got murdered. Cartoon Network network didn't let JG Quintel do absolutely everything with regular show, but some adult jokes made it in. There are lines like this:
"The faster we go, the more chances to throw the balls we get. So I want everyone to line up, and when the balls drop..."
and adult jokes like this. However, since Close Enough is an adult show, JG Quintel is mostly unfiltered. Sure, there is censored nudity in the show and there are no F-bombs, but I feel like the second season will have less limitations as it is on streaming and not on TBS as it was initially intended. It's important to acknowledge that season 1 was going to air on TV, so there were clearly some limits on what JG could do. Season 2 is going to be great, so I really hope that happens, as I want to see if JG will go all out next season.
Rise in your eyes as I kiss you goodnight. Your smile is the fire that rocks my soul. Gonna remember it until I grow old. 'Cause life is too short, we gotta do things right. So baby, let's just party tonight. Baby, let's just party tonight.
The show focuses on a lot of adult themes, but not all of them are explicit. I really like the episode Logan's Run, as it focuses on how old Josh and Emily have become. I find it funny how they thought they partied all night long at the club, only to realize it's just 9:15 p.m. There's also an episode called The Cool Moms, which is a very interesting episode. It's about Emily trying to hang out with the cool moms at Candace's school. There's an episode about Josh and Emily trying to relive their first date. Then there are the bizarre episodes, like one about a talking snail who gives Emily a time-traveling hat. That episode is bizarre and I love it. There is also an episode that focuses on ham thieves. Out of all the weird episodes, my favorite has got to be the Canine Guy. It plays homage to Jim Carrey movies and is about Josh befriending a talking dog who he calls Dog Boy. This episode is crazy and I love it. This episode is also the first 22-minute episode of the series so far. It is batshit crazy as it is revealed that Dog Boy's creator is creating animal-human hybrids so that they can star in bad animal family films. The episode also has a great Weird Al cameo where he reveals that he gets his songwriting skills from a demon and then quickly gets mauled by a bear. Yes, Weird Al is canonically dead in the Close Enough universe. I love the absurd episodes of Close Enough, but the heart of the show is very much so present, specifically in the episode Skate Dad. In that episode, Josh introduces Candace to his hobby of skating as a way to bond with her. This episode has a great theme of fatherhood. Despite being confident, it turns out that Josh's skating skills are no longer as good as they used to be. This leads to Candace being taught skating by a guy named the Gooch, a skateboarder who Josh is afraid is taking his daughter away from him. This episode is great. I also love how the show focuses on Josh's backstory. His dad disapproved of his skating lifestyle and pointed at his watch. At the end of the episode, Josh points at his wrist because he doesn't want Candace to skate with the Gooch, which leads to him to realize he's become his father. The episode ends with Josh saving his family and successfully skating them into safety into a backyard pool. The episode ends with Gooch saying this:
"That man's no skate dad. He's a skate father."
This is another thing I like about the show, the occasional abrupt endings. Now that I've went over the crazy and down-to-earth storylines, I want to briefly talk about the characters. Josh and Emily are great leads for this show. Josh is a game developer who works at a Best Buy type electronics store, while Emily works as an assistant for Food Corp. Despite working, they live in a small apartment with Alex and Bridget. Josh and Emily are a couple who care about each other who are still in love. Alex and Bridget are the exact opposite. They are both divorced and bicker with each other on occasion. However, they clearly still harbor feelings for one another as seen in the episode First Date. Then there's Candace, the daughter of Josh and Emily. She's a great character. What I like about this show is that Candace isn't a silent baby. She talks in the show. Baby Blues is a great show, but it didn't get to the point where Zoe could talk. I really like the decision to make Candace talk, as she is a funny character. I am so glad the show is able to explore Josh and Emily's relationship with their daughter. Overall, Close Enough is a great show. In fact, it's a jolly good show. I really love how Close Enough is a perfect successor to Regular Show. Regular Show is about two 23-year-olds trying to figure out their lives, while Close Enough is about two 30-year-old parents who haven't completely figured out their lives. This show is great. I want to close this video by talking about the importance of this show. I find it interesting how the two creators who made two very influential Cartoon Network shows and started a renaissance for children's cartoons are now reinventing adult cartoons. Pendleton Ward has The Midnight Gospel, and now J.G. Quintel has Close Enough. I find that very cool. This has been ShadeX, and I hope you feel nothing but good vibes.
Yeah, let's do this right. Hope you guys like Weezer.